Welcome, everyone. So technology has grown quite a lot since the age of computers and has become a genuinely concerning topic in many Americans' minds. AI, or artificial intelligence, was created in the 1950s and was designed by Alan Turing to imitate and perform on the same level as human intelligence. Even though AI was created in the 1950s, the recent rise of AI technology is very alarming. I'm Wyatt Wadley, your host, and you're watching. Today we'll be talking about what AI is and how it has been changing the society we live in. We'll discuss how AI is affecting business along with media and art. So buckle up as we unplug the outlet on what you need to know about AI. To better understand this issue, we will talk with the business owner of the Game Room Club and AI expert Patrick Bridgman, as well as Jamie Thomas, who is a web developer. Later during the show, Yana Pejin, an art and media expert, Gabby, and a student at CSM who is familiar with AI, will join us in our discussion. We're going to start with what AI is and how AI is being used by businesses. So based on data taken from companies around the world, 35% of businesses use AI technology for various applications. Mr. Bridgman, tell us a little bit more about the Game Room Club, please.
So the Game Room Club is an idea that I had going on about 20 years ago at this point. What it is the idea that gaming is for bringing people together. It's a sport, kind of like any other. It's a game like any other, and most games are better together. So we wanted to create an environment where we're able to enable entertaining people, educating people, and establishing community through the use of games. We want to do that in a place where we can be able to enable a wide variety of experiences that lend to those particular areas. So that's the Game Room Club, and hopefully we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about it coming up soon.
Absolutely, love to hear it. Thank you for your feedback on that, by the way.
Yep.
So another question that often comes up on the subject is how AI is affecting different areas in the workforce. As in recent years, there's been a decrease in certain jobs, especially a lot of computer-based jobs. In fact, statistical data from the UN today show that 47% of jobs in the US are at risk of becoming eliminated because of the use of AI technology. So tell us, Mr. Bridgman, as a business expert, what do you think is causing this decrease, and how do you feel about this?
I think that when we look at numbers like that, we have to really take into account the macro picture, and by that I mean we have to look at the amount of people who are able to even fulfill these roles. As we know now, there is a surplus of jobs on the market. When you look at the macro picture, unemployment is at an all-time low. And as you increase income in countries around the world, we see that, for example, families become smaller. Instead of having large amounts of children and things of that nature, you have less and less family units. And that decreases the amount of workers who are able to replace the jobs that are there, right? So when we talk about AI, there are some concerns regarding what's occurring with jobs being replaced, but we also have jobs being eliminated, but we also have to think about, do we have the human capacity to even fill those jobs in the first place? So there's going to be, in my opinion, a balancing effect of that, because again, like I said, at this point we have a surplus in a lot of jobs. So AI is going to help in those particular areas to facilitate that need set that a particular business may have, where the human capital may be unavailable.
Okay, thank you very much for your input. Continuing forward, experts believe that AI will take over about 16% of current jobs within the next 10 years. but we're not. A new era of job opportunities will arise. So, what do you think about this issue, Mr. Thomas? Do you feel the same way as Mr. Bridgman? Does this situation concern you or make you worried about future for computer careers?
I think in my experience, having been doing development for 20 some years now, it's definitely changed the work environment because you had to, in the beginning, go to a manual, go to a conference to kind of get information about how to do things and get examples. And that's evolved to, the internet and searches and things like that that make all that more accessible, and things like YouTube. And the primary resource I used up until my personal experience 3 or 4 years ago was a site called Stack Overflow in my job, which would often be where you would land if you're looking for programming solutions or things to try to work things out. And that got replaced pretty quickly by things like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT as a kind of better resource, I guess, to help you out with things. And I'm seeing that kind of bleed into my work with the things that I do, where if it's something that's at a utility basis or a repetitive kind of task, it can be a help. I think at the same time, it makes that accessible to the novice developer, and that's a good tool, but there's also some danger there on not having the experience of learning from trial and error and kind of being presented with a solution and accepting it and moving on and not maybe understanding some of the concepts. So I think the power in AI from a developer perspective is going to be more to know how to ask questions of ChatGPT and these types of tools in a way that's constructive to help with solving problems. But it can also be a help to somebody trying to learn, but I think it's kind of like a sharp knife. You have to be careful. It will cut things quickly, but you can also, do damage or find things that you do things maybe you shouldn't be doing in your solutions.
Okay, thank you very much. So these are both very valid points about AI in the workforce, no doubt. Another question that usually comes up in a lot of discussions about AI is, what is AI's overall impact on the world? And how is it affecting the next generation? So this time, let's start with Mr. Thomas on this, and tell us what you feel about AI is doing to the world and to the future.
For me, I found it kind of fascinating when I first encountered it, just because of the wide breadth of things you could ask AI to do and to various topics or searching things. I think it can be a valuable resource, but I think it also has to be kept in bounds, I guess, as far as not creating things, fake things, or things that seem simulated, things that are, what's real, what's not real, becomes a little bit harder to decipher. So I think there's really good opportunity with AI, but I think there's also caution ahead as far as how the information coming out of those types of things are received.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bridge, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a two-edged sword. I think that AI can be a force for good. There's many areas where it's a positive thing. And there's broad ranges of the different types of AI, machine learning and weak AI versus strong AI, and the things that exist as we know it. There's the potential for misuse, which we have to be very cautious of. In my opinion, I think there needs to be a shift in the way that we educate the next generation. Insofar as we have to go back to a place where we teach our kids about viewing things from first principles, questioning things, because the way that AI is, and it provides you just, the answer just like that. There's so much of our society, so much of our culture that has occurred from happy accidents, right? Where you break things and you figure out how things work, and you're able to, just get that base of understanding. And one of the dangers of AI, not even the Terminator kind of thing, but the danger in AI, as from a mental perspective, is that I believe that if we're not cautious, we can get to a place where we're willing to just accept anything that it presents us. And that gives opportunity for those who know how to use the tool to be able to use it for nefarious purposes. So we have to be careful of how we go about doing things as a society as this tool becomes more and more accessible and used more and more throughout society.
Thank you both very much for that. Those are both very valid points about AI in the workforce. So as we continue forward, we have a few more questions I want to address with both of you. Is how does AI technology in the business, such as Mr. Brigman's comment, how do you think that might impact possibly future generations regarding, families and raising their kids, versus such as, my generation when we were growing up? It's very different. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's, again, it depends on how you use it, right? For the future generations, as you guys raise kids and things of that nature, again, like I said, going back to the whole thing of teaching how to use first principles and question why, and not readily accepting, any answer that's just given. I think that's going to be something that's going to be critical as AI becomes more commonplace. And part of the reason for that is because if, God forbid, something were to happen, naturally, right? Insofar as, let's say, a solar flare or, I think it's a Carrington event situation where, solar flare hits Earth and we're, shut down power-wise and you don't have access to that tool, are you still going to be able to function? Is society still going to be able to go on? So you have to have that mindset of the human mind is still valuable. Right now we have, the breadth of human knowledge in our pocket, on our phones and things of that nature. We have to continue to teach that next generation, your generation and the generation that follows, the things that got us here. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. You know what I mean? So having AI as a presence, you have to think about it as a tool, not a replacement for thought, not a replacement for action. And that's kind of how I would, advise your generation as you guys come of age and as you raise children.
Well, thank you for your thoughts on that. Mr. Thomas, could you please weigh in on that?
Yeah, I agree with much of what was said. I think that it's a challenge. My generation had to go to a library and look for an encyclopedia and work to find information. And like you said, it's in your pocket now. It's and I do it as well. I rely on those things, and they're fantastic that we have that information available. But it's also it's all there. So I think things that are not age appropriate or things that are not meant for all demographics are there as well. So it's tougher and tougher as a parent to control information or limit information or how that impacts the upbringing of children and of those generations. So I think there's, as he said, a lot of value in trial and error and working through a process. And it's nice to take a shortcut, but or have information readily available. But I think the learning process is the failure is an important part of it. You might not feel like it when you're going through it, but it leads you to sometimes a better solution or something that you fully understand. And I see this myself if I'm trying to learn a new concept or find out about something. If you passively watch a video, you think, oh, I understand that and I know what's going on. But when you try to work with the technology or do what's involved, it's much different experience. And that's really the important part. But I think we get that kind of instant gratification now of, instantly have the information. And I find this happen myself with GPS directions, for example. When you don't have to look at a map, you just kind of turn it on and go. Your brain kind of goes on vacation as you navigate to where you're going, and aren't really sure sometimes. And I try to keep a sense of direction in my head of what I'm doing. But I think life can get that way as well when everything's presented to you instantly, and you don't really think about things in the critical way that you should.
Thank you very much for your comment on that. So that brings me to another question. So how has AI caused a decrease in certain job fields? And how do you feel about this? With all this new technology pouring in, jobs are created, but jobs are also eliminated. Care to share your opinion on that, please? Mr. Briggs, start us off.
Yeah, sure. Industries come and go. I think we don't pay attention to that as much as we probably should, and that's part of the reason for the alarm. The beginning of the 20th century, the largest industry was probably the whaling industry. You had that whale oil industry. Everybody used that to light their homes and things of that nature. And overnight, almost within maybe a 2-year span, that industry disappeared because of electricity, because we found out about carbon based fuel, oil, and things of that nature. The horse industry. You have to think about back in the day before cars, right? You had horse and buggy, and you had all the accoutrement that goes with that. And Henry Ford creates the Model T, and boom, that industry is gone. The beauty of human nature is that we're very adaptable. So I think we look at this as a challenge, and it is a challenge that needs to be overcome, but we are extremely adaptable, and industries have come and gone before, and industries will come and go again. And I think that as the human race in and of itself will be able to overcome the challenges that come as a result of the industries that's going to fall away as a result of the birth of AI.
Absolutely. Adaptability, a great point you made. And like you said, we've seen that time and time again. So hopefully we'll be able to do that as the future arises. Mr. Thomas, share your thoughts on that?
I was thinking the same word as we were talking about this. I think that it's, you have to look for the opportunity in these things. I mean, there are, as he's mentioned, there are many things in industry that have happened that have kind of made other things obsolete. But I think there's also opportunity there for new ventures or new things. And not just AI specific, but, technology. I mean, we go to the store now and there's more self-checkouts than there are actual people. So, that's not less cashier jobs than there are checkout jobs, but at the same time, maybe it's more convenient for us, maybe it's not. For some people it is, some people it isn't. But I think that the reliance on technology is just growing all the time. And where there may not be certain opportunities that used to be there in the past, there are others that the technology provides, because there still needs to be support, maybe on a different side of it, for the things that are happening that we used to do manually or in a more regimented fashion, in the past.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Those are both very insightful opinions on the issue. We're going to take a quick break, and I would like to thank both our guests, Mr. Bridgman and Mr. Thomas, for your expertise on the topic. And so we'll be right back with 2 more guests, so stay tuned. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Never leave your car keys unattended.
bensound.com.
In the state of Maryland, a vehicle is stolen every 49 minutes.
This message sponsored by the Maryland State Police, the Maryland Vehicle Theft Prevention Council, and the Maryland DC Anti-Car Theft Committee.
Welcome back. Joining us now to discuss the effects of AI on media and art are Yana Paget and Gabby, who are both familiar with AI technology. So our first question is to Ms. Paget. As an artist yourself, how do you feel about AI art being used more often?
Well, the obvious typical answer you hear for any artist is really that it's frustrating, and it's truly deeply frustrating, because it's becoming such a big tool in the art community now. Not only is just something that's corrupting and scaring us as artists, but as a genuine tool that some artists are even using to get better and to help themselves. So it's frustrating to see how much we're letting it in, but also just how much it is truly hurting and abusing us. It's taking that handmade naturalness and turning it into something that's not, and it just completely destroys all that art is.
Okay, thank you. So do you think that kids are relying too much on AI in today's society? What are your
Honestly,
thoughts on that?
absolutely. It's even if it's just for the sake of fun, you can always they're just talking about it, they're wanting to use it, they're interested in it. Even if it's just the curious, like, oh, I'll just try it once. Even if it's just like, oh, I'll talk to the robot or I'll generate an image. Either way, you're still providing that AI with more data for it to improve its systems, to continue growing and to continue producing more and more. And like I said, every time someone hops in, they're like, oh, I'm just going to generate one image. You are then feeding that AI a brand new image to then learn off of and create more of that exact same image. And it completely ruins everything to possibly learn from.
Well, thank you. Gabby, your thoughts on that? Do you think AI is becoming an issue with kids in today's society? What are your thoughts?
I agree with her because I feel like it's just everybody is using it. Like you see it on social media, it's all over the news. And, the kids see that, they want to try it out, they want to use it, and it'll just, like even that one use is gonna allow them to be more open to what AI is.
Thank you. Ms. Paget, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and who you are as an artist regarding your studies?
So personally, I like to delve into character design as a focus, and that's actually what I'm focusing on in school. That's my major. And what character design is exactly what it sounds like. All those characters you see on TV shows, I may not draw the scenes for them, but I still invent the character. I give them that iconic design that makes them who you recognize. And in the sense of how AI would affect that, it's like I would go out of my way to create this completely original, brand new character for you, one that you may not have ever seen before, or that's even slightly similar to one that you like. Meanwhile, AI just compiles a bunch of pre-made characters together and pumps it out for you.
Okay, thank you. Do you think that AI art is becoming more traditional than basic art, like what you're describing?
I actually don't, because it does come to an extent where places like Disney do still pride themselves on their traditional page animation. Like you'll see in the studios all the time how they'll bring in these traditionally drawn pages, and it's just stack after stack of the same character in a slightly different pose, and that's just how traditional animation works. And even in more modern shows like Steven Universe, they're still using that technique. So even if AI is able to start producing more fluid animations for TV, there's still no way it can truly come down to that like mathematical science of, oh, here's how we create it from the root and put it onto screen.
Okay, thank you. Gabby, can you tell us more about AI's involvement in social media and its generation, within the generation, and its negative uses?
You go on TikTok, you see people generating backgrounds and all this other stuff, but then there's also people that are using it for malicious intent where they're doing, they're putting people's faces on other people's bodies and, just like using it for the wrong purposes. I feel like with everything, it's just getting bigger and bigger overall.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Paget, I want to pose that same question to you regarding the AI on kids and its involvement in social media and the negative uses that you might see.
You see it a lot, like she said about the whole putting faces on bodies. It became this huge thing with like deep fakes and just exposing celebrities and their quote unquote nudes that never even existed. And it's becoming so harmful even outside of, oh, I just wanted to create a fun image, down to, oh, I've created a toxic image that could like ruin your whole status as a person. And now I'm going to put this out into the world, but no worries, it's just for fun. It's so aggressive and just torturous.
Yeah. So continuing forward, do you think that AI, in relation to current events today, has played part in the writer's strike that has recently occurred? Weigh in on that.
Absolutely, it has. While there is definitely like a plethora of reasons for why they're truly going on strike, AI would definitely have an impact to it, because when you think about one of the main things that people were hopping on with AI was, oh, I can generate my own story. And of course, to writers, that's the biggest threat there could be, is because that's their whole mode of, being is, oh, I create this story, I create this tale, and that's all my work. Meanwhile, you can just go to ChatGPT and be like, oh, can you give me a story about a little girl and 3 wolves? And then bam, it'll spit something out for you. But you are still, again, missing that human touch, which is what they're fighting for, which is like, You want me to put my heart and soul into this work for you, but you don't want to appreciate me as such, because then you turn around and tell me, oh, but the AI could do the exact same thing you do.
That's a good point, because why it feels almost like it's the artist feels useless, because if you have just some random person on the street that can just put it into a computer or whatever and generate a similar piece to what you just made, it feels very depressing almost. Gabby, what do you think about that? I know you're not an artist in this regard, but what do you think about the question?
I would have to agree. I feel like putting it into the generator and having a generator response is not going to get the emotional side of it. You're not going to get that touch of like the empathy and the emotion that can go into a lot of writing and a lot of TV shows, movies. It's just going to be, the basic stuff with the generator.
Okay, thank you very much. What do you think of AI's involvement in school systems and the impact on studies and other electives? Can I start with you, please?
Well, I mean, that's definitely one of the big ones. The fact that we've come to a point where we have to create new software just so teachers can check if you used ChatGPT on your homework it's absurd. Like, why should I have to create a whole new program to stop this program that you created for yourself? It's ultimately, kids aren't learning anything, because then they can just go to the AI and be like, hey, I have a social studies homework. Can you find this year, find this event, and then create a 2-page paper on it for me? They did do none of that reading. They didn't look up any of the historic events. They didn't learn anything from it. All they did was spit something out on paper and got a grade for it. And it's just, it's turning everything backwards. Like, what's the point of going to school if you're just gonna not do any of it?
Understood. So we've talked about a lot of negatives regarding AI. Is there any positives that you both want to discuss, perhaps? Go ahead, Ms. Paget.
Well, as much as it does hurt a lot of the industry, it does help as well. Like I said, some artists are using it to better themselves and to help, because while there is, like I said, the generation of images, you just put in a prompt and then it spits out an image. But how that image is created is it takes a bunch of other artists' work and makes a Frankenstein to create a new image for you. So that is already harming several artists, because it's taking their work and creating it into something else, and they get zero credit for any of it. However, if another artist would then take that piece and say, edit it, draw over it, turn it into a whole different character, if they just use it as like a base, then in that sense, there is some help to it. They do somewhat learn, they can see the visual, and if, say, they don't have that creative stance they need to produce this idea that they have, yeah, they can generate something and then draw over it. And there are even some creators who have tested its capabilities in animation. And while the animation definitely doesn't look as clean as a typical animation would, it's a good base. It's definitely something to start off of and then build from. But it's never something that I think should just be spit out and claimed as art.
Okay, Gabby, your thoughts?
I think it allows for a lot of people to be more creative. Like, you put it in and it generates, and then it brings up a whole new picture that has never been created before. And it really just brings out creative aspects in people. And, it just really is able to help a lot of people with creativity.
Okay, thank you. Our final question for tonight. Do you think that AI will be more helpful or hurtful in school systems? I'll start with you this time, Gabby.
In the school system, I think it could definitely be more hurtful, going off of what she had said earlier, having to create a whole new system to check for ChatGPT. It just, like, what is the point? They're going to put in that topic, everything, get the paper. They're not going to learn about it. I've heard a lot of people that I know say that they've used it and they have no idea what the paper's even talking about halfway through. And I feel like it's very negative. It's not going to be good in the long run.
Thank you, Ms. Paget.
I completely agree. It's like I said, they don't learn anything from it unless you do generate something for the sake of ease. Like, maybe you had a really stressful week, you're too depressed to do the work, you just can't get out of bed and do it. So you just type something up and spits out an answer. If you still go through what it spit out and then you read it and then you truly take in what it's saying, I do think it can still help someone who is just struggling, because there are the types of kids who need certain advantages, like during tests, they'll get extensions on times. So in situations like that, I can understand it helping, but more often than not, that's not how it's being used. It's often just being spit out and then turned in and nothing's being processed. So all in all, it's just hurting the kids more than it is helping.
Well, thank you very much. Well, this has been an interesting discussion, no doubt, about AI, and I hope we've been able to give some insight into what the future may hold for this type of technology. I would like to thank both our guests for joining us today, and we hope to see you guys soon. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.